They're here again. It's episode number 88 of the Red River Horror Podcast. We have been talking about the best movies of 2022, what we're looking forward most in 2023, and we've got a very special guest, the one and only, none other than STACI LAYNE WILSON, coming to jump on and talk about some movies and a new book that she has. So remember to sit back, relax, and travel those channels of fear with us. It's the Red River Horror Podcast. Welcome back to the Red River Horror Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Zakrzewski, joined by RedRiverHorror.com founder Eddie Caiazzo. Hi, Ed. How are you?
Joe, I'm doing fantastic. We're here. What's it called? They're here. We're here.
Yeah.
We made it.
We did. We made it.
Another year.
We did it. Welcome to 2023, my friend.
Hey, thanks very much. Welcome to you, too.
Yeah. And we've got a very special guest with us today. We got STACI LAYNE WILSON on the line. Hi, STACI.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Eddie and Joe. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Great to have you back. Right before we started the show, we were talking about some of our favorites from 2022 and some of our biggest disappointments from 2022. It starts, obviously, we were not going to go into it, but my disappointment was I'm just going to say it out loud. We said it before. We just said it. Halloween Ends, major disappointment, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, yeah, STACI, before we get into how much Halloween Ends sucks, how was your year? How was your 2022?
Well, I had a productive 2022 and, put out a couple of books. The first volume of Rock and Roll Nightmares, True Stories, which is true crime and awful things that have befallen rock stars throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right up to present day. So I love true crime and I love rock music. And so I kind of found a way to combine the two. And so, and then volume 2 is coming out this year. But volume 1 and then a couple of other books published and a film, which is not horror. So we won't talk about that. But I do have a horror movie called Night of the Mannequins coming out in 2023. So that'll be fun.
Cool. Ooh, exciting. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So yes, Joe, now we can, we've been waiting for a long time to talk to each other and STACI about the, the elephant in the room. I don't even know what the hell you call Halloween Ends. What the hell was that? It's been a long time since we chatted.
I don't know. And I just leave it at that. There's other movies in the franchise that really get, they're not good and they get treated like that with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Yeah.
I've never personally.
But at least Michael Myers was in Halloween 2. I mean, he's barely in Halloween Ends.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things where it's the positive for Ends that I hear from the fanboys who just nothing can be bad.
Right.
Is just like, well, they just want to do something really creative, like a different artistic approach. And my argument is, if that's your excuse, then Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is a masterpiece. Going to like White Pony and all that, like, making it his reason for aggression. Like, let's relax. It's like, it didn't need to be a trilogy. It's one of those things where it's like, can't we just have one good thing, or maybe just a revision or a copycat kind of thing?
No,
can't do that.
Sorry,
but hey, that's the way it goes.
And STACI, so at RedRiverHorror.com, you had reviewed Halloween 2018 for the site. It was the first ever, because you're like a real movie critic. Like I'd like to try and dabble sometimes, but you're a real one, like a real live movie critic. So when I saw 5 stars for 2018, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited. And I went and saw it. And I was very impressed. I was pleased. I was like, this is it. This is good.
The first one was really good. Yeah, there's just been a case of diminishing returns with each one. I thought, the second one, it was okay. And that was Halloween Kills. And then Halloween Ends, it only got 2 votes. So for me, which is, hey, there's something on the screen. So that made a movie. That's a step in the right direction. But yeah, it didn't get 5.
And then always try to find something positive to say about it. At least the cold opening for Halloween Ends was pretty cool with Corey and the accidental death of the.
Oh, yeah, that was fun. Yeah,
that was good.
I know. Sets you up for something that looks like it's going to be pretty cool. At least they have, the babysitter. They kind of circled back around to that. trope. But then, it's just really strange. And why did Laurie keep trying to set her granddaughter up with that creepy guy?
Right.
What was that?
Who knows?
It's like they forged, like you understand the basics of storytelling. Why in the world are we trying to create a very awkward and uncomfortable love story in the middle of this mess?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to try and do that, like, you have to start in the second one or something. Like, that was bizarre. The whole dance scene, like, it was bizarre.
It's very odd. And you're seeing that a lot where these, franchises are coming, like, with their comebacks years later, the story's not really given enough attention, but, it's still a box office draw. So I guess that's all that at the end of the day, that's what really matters when they're producing this stuff. So whatever I have to say about it's kind of meaningless, but all right, well, I value my opinion.
Well, I'll pick. So I agree with you. The cold open for Halloween Ends was good. There was one other part I thought was really good, and that was, and this scares me because I'm in a radio studio every day, but the death of the DJ. That was pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he just kind of thrust into the story with no context, and that was just kind of weird too, I thought. Yeah. But yeah, they did have a few good death scenes, which is obviously what we're there for.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, we had to turn the page. If we were going to go into 2023, we had to turn the page on Halloween Ends 2022.
And then just for like 2022, I think my favorite thing out of 2022 was probably this X and Pearl and wherever that's going.
Oh.
It was just X was so much fun.
X was really good.
It's a lot of fun. And then Pearl was a lot of fun. It's just like, okay, this is kind of like mindless, like the horror movies I love. Like, I'm not thinking too much.
Yes.
I'm just entertained.
See, yeah, Stacey, how did you feel about X? I
loved X. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the 1970s was one of my favorite eras, and I thought Ty West did a really great job with the costuming and the music and the overall vibe of it, and it was fun. The characters were cool. I didn't like Pearl so much. Of course, Mia Goth is an excellent actor, and it's always fun to watch her, but that one wasn't my favorite. It was a little too long, a little too slow, but X is fantastic. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
See, I put the brakes on Pearl because I've watched that trailer and I was excited about Pearl, but my thoughts are there's probably going to be a few animal deaths, so I'm going to have a few drinks or something before that. I don't like that. Humans, go ahead, eviscerate them. Animals, like, all right, hold on, like I need to be in the right frame of mind for that.
Don't watch Cannibal Holocaust then.
Okay.
Definitely stay away from that one.
Yeah, real animal deaths in that one. It's like an animal snuff film from the 70s.
Oh, my. And that director just died, right? Didn't he?
Yeah, I guess so.
He did. Maybe he's being tortured in hell by all the animals.
Yeah. Well, that was like that was like the movie you had to get your hands on when we were kids.
You're right.
Just like, have you ever heard about this?
Death, remember that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Did you hear about that? Oh my God. Like, I kind of miss the mystery and like trying to find it in a video store or like get some like, Well,
but so I'm gonna put the brakes on Pearl. I'll catch up, I guess, before the third one's out.
Yeah.
But I liked X a lot. Thought that was a lot of fun. And then I guess to turn the page on 2022, one more title because the chick has blown up since then. The Scream 2022, I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah.
Scream 2022. It was in the very beginning of the year. And Jennifer Ortega. Now she's Wednesday.
Jenna Ortega. She's great.
Yeah. She does a great job as Wednesday.
Yeah. Like, I'm just saying, like,
the kid's got talent, I tell you.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So not a bad year for horror movies. Some good stuff, some underwhelming stuff. Would the David Harbour one would that count as horror?
Yeah.
I mean, it's gory. I guess it's horror. Yeah.
Yeah. David Harbour is a maniacal Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all good.
So looking ahead, well, Stacey, you already talked about Rock and Roll Nightmares, True Stories. Now, I remember we spoke to a few narrators. We actually did the whole trilogy, I think, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
I believe we did.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He covered the fictional part
Yes.
of the series, right? So it's a mix of fictional and true stories.
So now you had True Stories drop. Now volume 2 is coming out on January 9th.
Yeah.
2023. How do you feel about it so far? Are you excited for the release?
Oh, I sure am. Yeah, the feedback to Volume 1 has been really great. I was going to put it all in one book, but then it would have been like the size of War and Peace. So I've decided to cut it into a couple of different volumes. Now, this one has more murder. The other one was more like the Volume 1 covered like the 27 Club, plane crashes, suicide, things like that. Now, the Volume 2 covers rock stars who've been murdered, rock stars who put out hits on other people, the satanic panic of the 80s. That's a chapter that I think a lot of horror fans would get into. And of course, that chapter is called Running with the Devil.
Hey, that brings up one of my favorite bands. Do you remember my AOL screen name? There's always a mix of my two favorite bands.
VH.
So it was Black and Blue.
VH
that was
27.
Yes. Well, VH2.
Oh, VH2.
So Black and Blue was the third album from the Backstreet Boys. They're my one favorite band. So this is so random.
That's right. I remember that.
VH is Van Halen. So Backstreet Boys and Van Halen, I know it's random, but they're my two favorite bands. That's why it was Black and Blue VH2. How about that?
There it was.
Nice.
So if you can dish on any Van Halen stories that happen to be in Rock and Roll Nightmares, the true stories.
Absolutely. Well, there are a few, but one of the chapters about rockers who were murdered, of course, has to include Dimebag Darrell from Pantera, who was actually murdered by a crazed stalker fan while performing on stage. And Darrell had grown up absolutely loving Van Halen, being a huge fan, of course, of Ed Van Halen's guitar playing. But he had never met his idol until about a week before he died, or maybe a couple of weeks, not that long. And they hit it off great, and he was so excited. And he actually said, "I can die happy now." And it's kind of like, uh-oh, be careful with what you put out there, because he was actually tragically killed on stage, which is horrible. I mean, like, if you... Yeah, I mean, the stories of all the people that were there and witnessed it, and the cop who actually, like, he was 2 minutes, he was on the scene, and he killed the man that murdered Dime. And so it's like just such a crazy story. But at Dime's funeral, Ed Van Halen actually attended, and he brought one of his guitars to the service, and it was buried with Dime. And he said some really nice words about him as well. So, I mean, what a great guy. I mean, that's just, he didn't have to do that. I mean, he just met the guy like a couple of weeks ago, and he just really, like, not only fulfilled his lifelong dream while he was alive, but, you know, he kind of sent him a lovely token into the afterlife, if you will. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the ancient Egyptians who were buried with things that they loved or that they might need in the afterlife. And so I thought that was really a nice story.
It is a nice story. I didn't know that. I did not know that, and I'm a big Pantera fan, so I'm surprised that. Like, yeah. I mean, the Van Halen influence is very noticeable. They both do a lot of pulling on the guitars. It's like, you know, get your pull kind of thing that he would say. And he was also Diamond Darrell before they kind of changed gears into that more thrash type, you know, different metal look. You know, and it's a shame, you know, his brother was there. It's a shame to not know where he could have gone, because at that point in their career, they're transitioning. They're called Damage Plan. I don't know if that project would have went on too long, or if they would have been back in Pantera at some point, or if that would have ever happened.
Well, the fan was actually pretty deranged, the person that shot him, and he was mad about Damage Plan. He wanted, you know, he was a big Pantera fan, and he just thought this was the wrong direction to go in, and off his meds and the whole thing. I mean, it was just really such an awful story. But, you know, that nightclub went on and on for decades, and it was just torn down, I think, last year or the year before. So it's gone as well.
And then another thing about it was the same day as John Lennon, too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, December 8th is something that I actually cover in both books. It's a very uniquely tragic date. Several strange things have happened on December 8th to rockers and people in the rock world. So, yeah, that's one of the interesting things that I think I uncovered throughout the series. Because when you take all these things into a whole, rather than just writing about one incident, you kind of see some really interesting, almost cosmic patterns to these things. And it's just really fascinating. So that's one of the things that is explored in both books, actually.
Wow. So December 8th, if these, and this is, I'm not speaking out of disrespect, okay? But I'm just saying, like, I'm just trigger warning.
Sure.
All right. If some of these people were involved with the devil, I'm a Catholic, man. December 8th is the Immaculate Conception.
It is.
So,
very strange.
So
yeah.
what is that? That's like either side of the spectrum. No, I'm not saying that Dimebag or John Lennon were devil worshippers, but I'm just saying that's the same day of the Immaculate Conception. That's when the Catholic Church celebrates.
Well, it must be like a really powerful combination of numbers. You know, a lot of people are into numerology and do all kinds of charts and things on that. So there must be something to it.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm looking, so I'll have to put the book on my top list to learn a little more about the December 8th date. So cool.
Yeah.
Some cool stuff.
Yeah, rock and roll.
I've actually not seen anyone else come up with that. So maybe you'll only read it in Rock and Roll Nightmares Volume 1 and 2. I haven't really seen anyone else make that connection, but someone must have by now. But I kind of lay it out in a different way in the books. I
don't think it's ever really been touched on other than people being like, in the social media space being like, R.I.P. John Lennon, and someone just being out of nowhere, like me being like, asterisk Dimebag Darrell.
Oh, right.
So,
well, in this social media world, it's easy to jump in there on the comments.
Yeah, just be a bit of a D-bag.
To start a Reddit thread or something.
Yeah.
So we have Rock and Roll Nightmares, True Stories, Volume 2. We covered on this podcast, then at Red River Horror, we covered the fictional stories, the 60s, 70s, 80s, spoke with the narrators there. We're speaking with Rock and Roll Nightmares, the author of True Stories, Volume 1, Volume 2, coming January 9th. I just wanted to say that because I, of course, had some questions that I think other people that might be in that were looking to get into these rock and roll / horror stories might be interested in. Mm-hmm. So are there any, I guess was it Variety that wrote? Yes, it was Variety who reviewed your first book. They said the perfect entertainment for anyone who's ever played Stairway to Heaven backwards to hear the mumbled phrase, "Here's to my sweet Satan." Is there any stories that you've uncovered where someone actually did record something so that when it was played backwards, it would be something satanic or evil?
Well, you kind of froze there, so I didn't hear the whole question.
Oh, no. Okay. So
sorry.
No. Was there any band or any stories that you uncovered in your research or that you've put to paper that has actually tried to record something to be played backwards with sinister intentions, whether that be devil worship or just something evil when they play it back? Like, did anybody intentionally try to do that?
There's denials all around. People say, no, we didn't do that. But, in the big court case in the mid 80s with Judas Priest, when a couple of their fans killed themselves, tried to kill one person, survived. But, he lived only a couple of years after he blew off out of his space. But the attorneys tried to say that Judas Priest had put in the word "do it, do it, do it" in one of their songs on Stained Class, which is an excellent album, by the way. But it was actually a cover song that they didn't even write. And there was no backward masking found. But it was kind of funny because their manager said, right, if we were going to put backward masking, why would we have our fans kill themselves? We'd say, buy 8 copies, or buy more Judas Priest merch or something. It is kind of silly. Also, it's funny, Led Zeppelin was definitely one of the more prominent groups that were accused of backward masking, and Jimmy Page on talk show, he had said, God, it's hard enough to write a song the right way around. Why would you want backwards things on it? And then Robert Plant said, that's silly. Like, who would think of that? But actually, one of Jimmy Page's idols, Aleister Crowley, this famous cultist, occult person from the 40s and 50s in England, he actually wrote in one of his books about you should do things backwards because that's kind of a demonic thing. You know, the devil, kind of everything's in reverse. So actually, Aleister Crowley did think of that.
Yeah, well, I think that's also what scared a lot of the those that was like this. Wasn't he cited a lot by the groups claiming for the reverse? Like that was the source of the satanic panic. Was a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, Anton LaVey was a big kind of media figure in the 70s and 80s, and he was the leader of the Satanic Church in San Francisco. But yeah, David Bowie was, you know, you don't really think of David Bowie as being someone who would be interested in Aleister Crowley, but he was too. His 1971 song Quicksand name-checked Crowley. There's also the Ozzy Osbourne song, which mispronounces the last name.
Crowley.
But, you know, and he's funny too, because of course he was a huge target in the 80s during the Satanic Panic. And there's a story about him where he actually, there were protesters lined up outside of one of his concerts, you know, holding signs and stuff. And he actually picked up a sign and joined the picket line, and no one knew it was him. That's like how invested they were in knowing who they were protesting. No one recognized him, and he just kind of joined in this joke, and it's just really fun. There's some really fun, funny, you know, lighthearted stories, and then some really awful ones, of course, about those poor Judas Priest fans who shot themselves. And there's also another story about an aspiring rock group that thought they had to sacrifice a virgin, and they wound up killing this poor girl, torturing her from their school. And so there's stories like that too. Yeah. I mean, I really try to give a portrait of the whole satanic panic, and also the 70s, you know, with just such a sort of a renaissance time for the devil. If you think about all the movies that came out, like The Exorcist and The Omen, and yeah, that's kind of where it started. And then the backlash came in the following decade.
Yeah, a lot of the entertainment became a lot more in your face in the 70s and into the 80s, and has continued to evolve to, you know, keep pushing the limit every year.
I had heard that The Exorcist, that William Peter Blatty, now he wrote the book and he also produced the film. Now I had heard that was to scare the crap out of people to go back to church. That's what I had heard. Am I incorrect?
Yeah,
I mean, I believe it.
Tale, right? Yeah, it was based on a true story of an exorcism of actually a young boy that happened in the 50s. Wow. So he kind of he used that as his springboard for the fictional account.
Yeah. And that's one more thing on the humorous side of things that we're talking about, you know, for the Ozzy's version, Mr. Crowley.
Right.
There is a baseball player in Philadelphia who had to change his walkout music. You know, players pick the song that when they come up to bat. And he had Mr. Crowley. And it's usually they let it go for the season. That's the first time I've ever seen someone change mid-season.
Who was it?
It's Pat Burrell. So he went from Mr. Crowley
to Holy Diver. That's right.
And then he finished, and then he had to do something lighter, and I think it was
Dirty Laundry.
Dirty Laundry.
Like Don Henley.
His last one.
There's a story behind that, too, because Don Henley, which is in Nightmares Volume 2, he got caught with a 14-year-old prostitute underage, because there's a whole chapter, too, about the underage groupies and all that, and his response to the media covering that event till it was done to death was writing Dirty Laundry.
Huh. Oh, so that song isn't as innocent as you thought it was.
No.
Pat Burrell, Mr. Crowley.
Young girl OD'd at his beach house in Malibu. And so he was forced to call the cops, and he kind of wound up calling the cops on himself.
Whoa. How about that? So was that my dad has always said, you know, him and Stevie Nicks, they were into like devil worship, but like he doesn't fully grasp that concept. Like he's never fleshed it out, I guess I should say. So is that the extent of the Don Henley evil, or is there more?
As far as I know, he's a very litigious person, so I don't think I'm going to say anything. So not based. But yeah, I know Stevie Nicks, of course, her witch thing, that was brought up in the, in a lot of the press in the 70s, Rolling Stone and Frame magazine and stuff like that. But she wasn't taken as seriously because she was just a chick. So, people don't really talk about that too much with her.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious because, it was, that's a little before my time. And I'm like, do you think Stranger Things captured the Satanic Panic vibe? Because that's what they were going for with their most recent season.
I actually stopped watching it after season 1, so I didn't get into it that much. But of course, they had the Metallica, the kid playing his way out of hell, right, with the Metallica song.
Oh, the Upside Down.
Yeah, the Upside Down.
Yeah, it brings back, brings back the music. But yeah, I mean, that 70s is vibes, before my time too. But that's actually my favorite era of music. I love it.
70s.
So that's really, and I think that one of the things that I have striven or strived to do, is to kind of give a well-rounded view of everything within historical context and not make judgments even on things like the underage groupies, because it really was a different time. And I try to explain that in the book, why people were like that, why people did things like that. I mean, there are some things that are fairly inexcusable no matter what era you're from or how you were brought up, because in the 70s, Steven Tyler and also Ted Nugent actually legally adopted their teenage girlfriends so they could take them across state lines. It's like,
oh my gosh,
where these parents are crazy, like signing over their kids to these rock stars for their debauch, kind of evil.
We just had Ted Nugent on the show.
I mean, that wouldn't happen today.
No, definitely not.
Oh my gosh.
And actually now there's, the Me Too, where the Julia Holcomb is the teenage girlfriend of Steven Tyler back in the 70s. And she's just filed a lawsuit last week.
That's right.
Him. Yeah. So, hey, better late than never for some of these people. But then there are others like Laurie Maddox, who was a 13 and 14-year-old groupie on the Sunset Strip. And David Bowie, took her virginity, and she was a girlfriend of Jimmy Page, and they were all in their 20s. But she says, she doesn't regret it. There's nothing wrong with it. No emotional damage. It's all good. So there are different kind of perceptions on things like that. So it's not all black and white. I try to show the shades of gray on some of these things.
And that's always what I've appreciated about your work specifically. It both in the things that you write and in the work that you do for Red River Horror and other places, is that it's like walking on eggshells. Like 2022 was like walking on eggshells, and how you talk about things, how you write about things. You're always very fair. Like, you always give a full picture of like a story. Like, it's not that it's just like, oh my gosh, he was with a 14-year-old groupie. All right, we're out. We're not touching this. We're not talking about it. We're not, like, you're not afraid to write about that. And I think there was a story you did for Red River Horror called, it was the time of Woketopia or something like that, and you spoke about...
Yeah, exactly. When it was still okay to stay woke, but now it's not.
Right. And I've just always appreciated, because it's like, we can say, okay, Victor Salva is a very bad person. We don't like him, but at the same time, like, yes, Jeepers Creepers was a good movie. It was scary. It was different at the time. Like, you were... I've always appreciated that about you specifically, is you're able to
thank you. Well, as a reader, I appreciate that as well. So I try to write things that I myself would like to read or that interest me. And yeah, I mean, that is an interesting, all those kind of things where it's like one person is Me Too'd from a movie, but you have to figure how many hundreds of people worked on that movie. And, you ban the movie, and then you hurt the actors and you hurt other people. To me, I've always been able to separate the art from the artist. I mean, I feel like once the art is out in the world, whether it's a song or a movie or a painting or whatever it may be, it's ours. The artist gives birth to it. It's like a child, and it goes out in the world, and it's its own thing. I try not to connect it with the person.
And that, I think...
And of course, we all have those, thoughts like, oh my God, how can I watch this movie and not think of that? And so, yeah, it can be difficult at times.
And that's what I appreciated. I think that's kind of where it all came home to in that piece specifically was like, okay, if we're going to we can talk about how awful Harvey Weinstein and the Weinstein brothers are. But the fact is, it's like, okay, do we cancel Scream? Do we take away that movie because they produced it, Dimension Films? It's like, no, we can't. That you had said specifically that it belongs to us now. It belongs to the fans.
Right.
Like that work belongs to us. And I've always appreciated. There's a lot of people who are afraid to now tackle that issue and those issues and those people, some of these power players like a Harvey Weinstein. There are people that are afraid to kind of talk about the art that was produced as a result of people like them or things that they've funded. And you are not afraid to do that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just because there was, do you let one bad apple spoil the bunch? When you think about all the other people who worked on it, is it fair to them?
Right.
So, gotta.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider for sure. And I think that education is the most important aspect of any anything like this. You kind of have to educate yourself about these things before you talk about them.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That's talking about things that are our own. So has anybody here had a glance at the trailer for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey? If you want to talk about something coming in 2023, now that that's in the public space, like the license, Disney doesn't have that license anymore, and you can make your own thing and slap the name Winnie the Pooh on it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you very well.
So Joe, so he was speaking specifically. Did you see anything about that Winnie the Pooh slasher film? Because Disney pretty much, they don't own Winnie the Pooh anymore. So now anybody
so it's in the public domain.
Yep. So Winnie the Pooh has entered the public domain and has a 2023 release, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
I gotta see it.
Yeah, and it looks very silly. I was hoping, like, when it was announced that there would be a little bit of an effort to make it look like it was the bear doing it, but it's not. It's just big men wearing a Winnie the Pooh costume, a piglet
I've
mask.
I've heard the title, but I don't know much about it. It's funny.
So
did you hear about the movie? Actually, a friend of mine wrote the screenplay. It's called Amityville Karen.
Interesting. I have not.
Amityville Karen?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I love the title. I mean, that's funny.
Who could you say who it was, by the way? I mean, I know we could look it up.
Julianne Philpott wrote the screenplay. She's an actress as well. She's been in a lot of horror films, but this is her first screenplay. I just thought it was, you got to see the poster. It's really fun.
Totally. I mean, so that's my sister's name.
Yeah. It's gonna be a tough one nowadays.
The hardest, I know. I don't know. The best or worst part is that she's the complete opposite. She's very nice. It doesn't. It's like not a complainer. So yeah, I'll have to.
But she got it first.
I'll give that poster for her. So.
Yeah,
and Karen. So, yeah, it's been tough for her.
Well, I guess, Stacey, before we move on to 2023, because I thought that Pooh movie was supposed to come out in 2020. It was supposed to be available by Fall Day. That's when we were going to watch it.
Yeah, and I kept getting pushed back.
But probably for a good reason. It's probably going to suck. That's just me talking, but it's probably terrible. But is there anything Rock and Roll Nightmares, True Stories in Volume 2 and maybe even Volume 1, if people need to catch up, is there anything you'd like them to know about, like, is there anything we didn't cover here that you'd like them to know before we move on?
No, I would just say, it's like Hollywood Babylon, but for rock stars. So if you're interested in true crime and just really interesting psychological studies of people, it's mostly rock musicians, but also kind of rock adjacent. So I do have the story of the soul singer Marvin Gaye, whose own father murdered him, and I go into some stories like that. There's also some question about whether or not Sid Vicious from the Sex Pistols, whether or not his mom kind of euthanized him with heroin to save him from going through a trial for the alleged murder of his girlfriend. there's all kinds of really interesting stories about the motivations behind why people do what they do, which is also very interesting.
I remember. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was reading his Jerry Only's encounters with Sid Like, I think he was out with them right before they died. Or at least he claims. Jerry Only from the Misfits claims that he was the last person with them before they died. I don't know if you ever heard that.
No.
I don't think it's true. I mean, he's kind of known to be a bit of a...
Maybe not.
I was like curious. I was like, because I've only read it in like some subreddits and stuff like that, like from him in a personal interview. People be like, "There's no way
that he was the last person."
Yeah.
Well, Marvin Gaye. Yeah. So I already listed my 2 favorite bands. My favorite solo artist of all time is hands down Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
What a great voice, and just such a wonderful lyricist. And he had problems too, like a lot of these people. It's also kind of interesting to study that era of the 60s and 70s where you were considered weak or not, like if you had a drinking problem or something, people judged you for that, or if you had a drug problem, and why they had these issues. Because just imagine the grueling lifestyle. I mean, of course they had to take uppers and things like that to kind of get through the day and to get hooked. So there's a lot of different, historical context as well that I like to put into the book.
Cool. Yeah. I was always curious if I could have been a fly on the wall in like CBGB in the 70s. I bet like just the stories that come out of that, even that area of New York still has like some, like I think a few of those bars are now all closed up, but I did get to go to a bunch of those where they kept the vibe and keeping, I don't know how they did it being in Manhattan with keeping the cost of drinks way down, but it's like, I mean, it's hard not to get into trouble in that area. Like
right.
It was designed to get intoxicated.
Surely there was a lot of enabling back then too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. And then I got a question for you before we move on, because I was reading this. Some of the, like, a good reason to buy this. Some of the proceeds are going to Sweet Relief Musicians Fund.
That's true. Yes. A portion of my profits for all the Rock and Roll Nightmares books go to the Sweet Relief Musicians Fund, which is a really great charity, 503c organization. And they actually helped a friend of mine, Danny Amos from Low Straitjacket. He got really, really, really sick before the pandemic and had major health issues. And they, got a fundraiser together for him and paid the hospital bills and the medication bills and all those things like that. He would have been totally out of commission because, a lot of musicians don't have health.
Yeah.
They're just kind of on their own.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I wanted to make sure we had that in our recording.
Absolutely.
So we can promote that.
My karmic checks and balances in order. Hopefully I'm writing about all these
totally,
problems,
yeah.
but also trying to be helpful.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always dreamed of being a rock star, and then I had to get a job with health insurance. So
sorry, man.
Right.
We all had to prioritize that.
That's why I became a DJ. I didn't have to learn. I once I started getting into the harder stuff, playing the drums, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm just take other people's songs and mix them together and make people happy. That works for me.
Yeah. So, very cool. Sweet Relief Musicians Fund.
Yeah.
So that's 501c3 nonprofit charity. Cool. Look them up. Yeah. Very
all right. Cool. So, dun 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 dun.
2023.
Yeah, 2023. Woot woot. Yeah, pop the champagne.
We're here. And then we've already dropped it once. I mean, the cover for this movie coming out on January 6th, Megan. And that's the James Wan movie. I mean, if you check out the trailer for this, I was like I was uncomfortable just looking at that doll, I guess is what it is.
Right. Yes. A very realistic, lifelike doll.
Yeah.
Apparently wants to end other people's lives. Yeah, it looks like a good one. James Wan has always been fascinated with dolls and creepy. Of course, you remember Dead Silence, but I was able to interview him several times during set visits and things like that. And he said that one of the movies that terrified him as a kid was, oh gosh, I'm a blank right now. The Tobe Hooper movie, Poltergeist. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, really? I need another cup of coffee. Poltergeist. Remember where the dolls all come to life? And the little girl and the clown. It's so creepy. So that, I guess, really affected him. And so he's always been kind of going back to that that nightmare image that he had as a kid. And so this one seems a lot more sophisticated and updated, and it really looks good to me. I get to see it actually, gosh, tomorrow is the screening, so I'm really excited about it.
That's exciting.
Cool. Well, that will be today when the podcast comes out for people listening.
Today.
Super
yes,
cool.
That's right. I'm time traveling.
No, that's cool. I still have this problem. We went over this with Jeffrey Reddick. All right. All right. Poltergeist. It's fine. It's a fine film. Now, I love James Wan. He scared the crap out of me from the basement days watching movies down here. When we saw Dead Silence, that scared me. Saw was amazing, the first one. The Conjuring was well done. They probably had the best exorcism scene I've ever seen in a film. What is the fascination with filmmakers that I like a lot, and they like movies that I think are eh? Like Jeffrey Reddick's was Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, he loves that movie. That's the whole basis for his horror existence. And now James Wan with the Poltergeist. What do you guys think of Poltergeist? I have to get this off my chest. I've touched on it before, but like, Poltergeist is good. It's not great. How does it inspire someone like James Wan?
You got to see it's a horror movie that was designed for the family. That's the big difference. Is like you could watch that at a real young age. And I think that's how it was marketed too, because I think it's only rated PG.
That's correct.
But that's before the PG-13. Didn't Spielberg have something to do?
It's designed to be like, here's something that everybody can be together and watch. Like, because you got to think about where horror is going there. I mean, you're coming out of the 70s. You know, the slasher genre is built, and it's like, oh, boobs and gore, knives, boobs and gore. And it's like you can't sit around and watch that together.
Toby
and
Hooper.
people want to be entertained, and boom. I mean, Poltergeist. Anybody can watch that. And a guy like James Wan probably saw it at a young age, and it leaves that lasting impression. So I think
I think it taps into a child's fears, and there's something just that makes an impression on you when you're a certain age, when you're young and impressionable. And I guess it just taps into your psyche and stays there, because even after they're grown up, that probably wouldn't scare them if they saw it now for the first time. But as a kid, it just really had an effect.
Yeah, that's where it is. Is like if you saw it at
the market. So you're saying that just the audience size was just that much bigger. That makes, as from a marketing side, I understand that. So the audience size was that much bigger. So kids and adults and everybody saw it. So that means that there's more of a chance that a larger amount of people liked Poltergeist.
Yeah, I mean,
that makes sense.
If you saw it at a younger age, I mean, that's when it's going to stick with you.
I don't get it. I like Poltergeist. I don't love Poltergeist. Everybody's like, oh, Poltergeist. Even though we even named this episode, they're here again. Yes, it's clear the inspiration that Poltergeist has had, but at the same time, it's not that great. It's good.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, there's another Toby Hooper movie from right around that time that I like much better, The Funhouse.
Oh, I've never seen that.
You got to check it out.
Write it down.
That's a really good one. But that's very underrated. Not many people talk about that, but it had more limited appeal, I suppose, than Poltergeist. Like what you said, Joe, is that it was families could go see that together.
Yeah, I mean, that was the way to do it. I'm sure there was plenty of kids wanting to go see Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, and their parents were like, yeah, no effing way.
Sure.
And then, Poltergeist comes out. It's like, okay, we can all go see this.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's logical. I can dig.
Yeah.
It's just, I never understood the Poltergeist. Like all the classics that are always named in the top horror movies of all time, like I get it. There's something that I understand. It's like, okay, I can see that. Okay, I can see that. But Nightmare on Elm Street and Poltergeist are the two that I just don't get. I don't understand it. I don't get people's fascination with them. I respect them for what they are and that they are that loved. But yeah, anyway, sorry for the rant.
It's okay. So that's Megan. And then I was drawing a blank on the last movie James Wan had, and I actually enjoyed that too. The one where she has the thing living on the back of her head.
Malignant?
Malignant, that's it.
That was the last James Wan film.
It's a weird, very tonally uneven movie, but it definitely had some effective parts.
Yeah. Yeah, not bad, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was just kind of weird,
well,
sick. I was like, all right.
It is. It's like James Wan channels David Cronenberg or something.
Yeah, I guess there was an element body horror to that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was in a very uncomfortable position when I watched that film. So it's not the film's fault. I was literally sitting on the steps, like kind of passing out. Just, I know that sounds weird, but it was just a long day and it was on. So I put it on, but there were people sitting in my living room. So I ended up sitting on the steps. You know how I do. Yeah. So like, I can't really fully remember Malignant, but that's crazy. That was James Wan's last one.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to like go down like the entire list because there's a ton of content getting released. So
yeah.
You know,
I'll go back to 2022 real quick. I'll just say that I saw Nope. And Stacey, I remember you at the LA Film Critics Association. I'm sure I'm butchering the name of the organization, but you guys were the first to recognize Jordan Peele's Get Out. Like that's before they were, he like won an Oscar for the screenplay and all that stuff. And I will just tell both you and Joe right now, I like Jordan Peele a whole lot. But for me, after watching Nope and Us, like since Get Out, like I don't know why Get Out was the one that's winning Oscars. To be perfectly honest, my Jordan Peele rating so far goes Us, Nope, then Get Out.
Really?
Yep. Absolutely.
Interesting. I mean, I loved Us. I mean, you know how much I really liked Us. Yeah, I mean, Get Out's really well written and really like well acted. Everything about it's pretty spot on. I mean,
clearly I'm missing the mark.
Two different kinds of movies, though, because Get Out is more of a personal horror film where something is happening to one person, whereas the Nope kind of tackles the cosmos and aliens, and so it's like much more all-encompassing type of horror that could affect the whole world, whereas Get Out is just more concentrated on a person, and I feel like you can relate to that person a little better for me. But I do need to see Nope again. I think, you know, it's one of those movies, I believe, that has hidden layers that you kind of uncover as you watch it more and more. I was a little underwhelmed. I loved a lot of the aspects of the filmmaking part of it. I liked the cinematography and the acting and the locations and how they put it all together. And there's some really interesting subplots, but I don't feel like I really got it the first time. So I'd like to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was blown away at the spectacle of it. That's where it was like, so being a Philadelphian, I remember the first time I went we had a world's competition we were covering in Mesquite, Nevada. So the first time I flew out to Vegas, that's where we started. Then we had to drive to Mesquite. I, as a Philadelphian, had never seen like red earth and like just mountains of red and brown dust, like, I guess. So for me, that is fascinating. So maybe I appreciated the spectacle more than the story itself, because like seeing out now, Stacey, you are from LA. Does it look like that outside of the city proper in Nope, like how Nope was?
Absolutely. Well, now I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, so I have actually seen Red Rock Canyon and the Valley of Fire, where they shot Beastmaster, and they shot some Star Trek episodes there in the 60s. It does look like an alien landscape in a lot of ways, and it's very unique terrain, unlike any other place in the world. So, yeah, I can see how that could be definite, grounds for something really creepy to happen. But I don't know. I mean, there's really no place to hide. I guess maybe behind a rock or something, but it's not like, you can like in a forest or something, where it seems scarier to me because there's a lot of places that you can hide. But I don't know, the vastness of it. I guess that's why he, did it with spaceships and from out of space coming in and beaming down these lights that kind of, well, I don't want to give anything away, but yeah.
Very War of the Worlds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. That was a 2022 film.
Yeah.
Sorry. I guess you're the most plugged in. You're going to be seeing a lot of films upcoming, Stacey. So is there anything on your radar 2023 that RedRiverHorror.com fans should be aware of?
Yes. Well, like I said, I'm going to see Megan, which I'm looking forward to. And later this month, they're screening the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Knock at the Cabin. Mm-hmm, so I'm it's about that. He's always kind of hit or miss for me. So I'm curious to see that. And then, of course, the third High West film in the trilogy should be out this year too.
Yeah, the Knock at the Cabin, though, I mean, really interesting cast. Whereas he's Dave Bautista, Rupert Grint from Harry. Yeah.
Ron Weasley?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's got a really interesting cast. I'm curious to see, Knock at the Cabin, it looks like it could, you just never know because all of his stuff advertises so well.
It does. He has the best marketing team of all time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, he's still doing films. He does have, of course, the Apple series. I forget the name of it.
Servant. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's very good. But yeah, a lot of these filmmakers are going into TV now. So that's really where I think a lot of the best horror is.
Well, I know that M. Night Shyamalan does not take kindly to being criticized. So because he's a Philly guy and he loves our area so much, I'm not going to criticize him.
That's what always makes me curious about where his filming locations are.
Yeah.
So I don't know where Knock at the Cabin was filmed, but I was it should you live in Philly. Mm-hmm. Your family has a cabin in the Poconos.
Poconos,
you got to be feeling that vibe. Knock at the Cabin.
Yes.
Even though we've already experienced that once.
We have.
Except the people already knocked and broke the glass and
that's true.
Left.
Yeah, Stacy, there's a short we're coming out with. So there's a short that we're coming out with that will be loosely based off of
a real life experience.
Yeah. We used I guess so we were in the Poconos. We went whereas everybody went to the Jersey Shore for senior week. Mm-hmm. Joe and I are best friends. We've known each other literally our whole lives. And so we on senior week we started, we both could drive. So us and two other friends went up to the Poconos. My mom's side of the family has a cabin up there, and it's a small, 1 floor, 3 bedroom, 1 bath cabin up in the Poconos. And that's where we went for senior week. So that kind of kicked off. We're both 18 years old. That kind of kicked off, I would say, a strong decade of Joe and I.
Just going up to go up.
Just going up, watching horror movies, telling stories, drinking, whatever. But now it's
well, the scary part is you get up there and before you get to the breaker box to get the power on, it's just pitch black.
Right.
And so we were coming up to the door. The door's locked. We got the key. I got a flashlight on the door. And as you're opening the door, you could see that the glass was broken. And there was blood behind the curtain. And it's as if someone punched through the glass and tried to let themselves in.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
but the weird thing is we were we would be the type that would see a movie at 11 o'clock at night. We were the people that would leave for the Poconos at midnight or whatever. Yeah. So we just happened.
You're kind of asking for trouble there, aren't you?
Pretty much,
yeah. So it was 4 a.m. by the time we got up there when that happened.
Something like that. It was odd, but apparently
was the blood fresh? Was the person or the creature still there?
We didn't see them. So
it was dry. The blood was dry. So the thing is, the real story, not to take away from the horror that we have coming in the short, but the real story, when we got up there, we obviously called the cops. And so the Poconos at that time was going through, it wasn't right now it's popping. It's a big tourist destination for New Yorkers and Philadelphians again. It's completely rebounded. Yeah. But at that time, it was not. It was in a very lull period. Some of the restaurants and the businesses were closing up. It wasn't a happening place. So what was happening is some of these people, we'll just blame it on them. I'm sorry for your fans up in New York, but it was a lot of New Yorkers coming into the Poconos and they were squatting in houses. Huh. So they tried to get into our cabin and were unsuccessful. That was the real. So he punched through the thing. Yeah. There was dry blood on the curtain. But
maybe there was something in your cabin protecting it.
Maybe, but it's all inspiration for. Hopefully, this is the year we get into production and get our short film ready to go.
Because nice. Yeah, that's what we're. It's we've had success on the festival circuit in the past. And actually, I know you've had a lot of success this past 2 years, actually, with the films that you've released. We've had success in the past of our stuff getting picked up by some top 100 festivals. So this will be the first time we've worked together on something dramatic, but we need it to not look like crap. So we need it to look really good and we need the actors to pull it off. So that's kind of where we're stuck right now. We need
What
people.
kind of runtime are you looking at?
15?
Yeah, I would say max
That's
15
good.
minutes.
Yeah, that's perfect for film festivals. They're always looking for something a little shorter. I never really understood like the 35 to 40 minute short. Might as well just make a feature at that point.
I agree.
Yeah, we learned that. We learned that we learned that by making one. You're like, damn, it's hard to get picked anywhere. It's just like, yeah. Like that in between.
Yeah.
Exactly. So good. You learned 15 minutes.
15
minutes.
The name of the game. And that's also why I'm more interested in Knock at the Cabin. I'm curious if he filmed it in the Pocono area or where he chose to.
So I won't get into the specifics because this gets into my day job a little bit, but there are a lot of people pissed off at M. Night Shyamalan. He's the one that got $5 million of this PA, like this tax credit, this money. Mm-hmm. So the Greater Philadelphia Film Office had a lot of support for M. Night and not a lot of support for the independent filmmakers here. So
yeah, I can see why that would be an issue.
Yeah, so there's people that are not that happy with M. Night and the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and their filmmaking tax credits and whatnot right now. So
it's tough because I'm sure he brings a lot of jobs to the area where he's filmed. So it's kind of like,
remember James McAvoy and Ambler eating at the cupcake place?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's serious stuff.
Yeah. So,
anyway.
But yeah, so Knock at the Cabin. Looking forward to that one. That's February 3rd is the release date for that.
Oh, nice.
I might try and steal a screener copy, or maybe I'll just knock on the door. His daughter's my cousin's next door neighbor.
Oh, great.
Nice.
Like, hey, can I get a copy of that real quick?
Why don't you, instead of
I'm definitely not going to do that. I'm not going to.
Instead of doing that, why don't you get him on the show? That would be the better play.
We can try. I mean, I've got like more connections to him than just that.
Then you should do that. That's the play. The play is to get him on the show, and whether the film's good or not, we can, like, all he wants to do is be loved. So we'll love up on some M. Night.
We will. I mean, he shot Sixth Sense, shot like right a mile from where we grew up.
Yes,
so,
where we grew up.
Come on,
neighborhood.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
How fun.
It's like seeing all those streets. Be like, I know where that is.
And also, just a quick note: Denzel Washington in Fallen, also filmed in Manayunk. He ate lunch with the kids at Dobson Middle School.
Really?
My wife's cousin Brian was one of them.
How about that?
Yep. Denzel.
Cool. I like that movie. That's a good one.
That's a good one too. I think that is one of the most underrated flicks from that
John
time.
Goodman,
It is
right?
one of them for sure.
That's a good one. Yeah, here's another fun one, Ed. You're not going to have to wait too long for your follow-up to Scream. Scream 6 is scheduled for March 10th.
Yeah, I liked Scream 5 or whatever they're calling it so much.
Yeah, and there's a little drama behind this one now because I think we're not getting it's like how many people are not going to be in this one? I don't know. We'll see.
That's probably for the best, to be perfectly honest.
Probably.
I don't know.
Probably. I mean,
What do you guys think about the Exorcist remake that's supposedly David Gordon Green, our friend?
I am terrified, Stacy, and I'm going to tell you why. So I was saving that for like my big dear God, like what it's going to be a trilogy. They've already announced that. I've already seen them do it one trilogy where it's just kind of like, yeah, you probably could have just left it at the one and let it go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's with the source material. Here at Red River Horror, we both genuinely love The Exorcist 3.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know if they're just going to be taking the source material from the original trilogy or are they going to do it on their own? I don't know what to expect. The thing that scares me the most is I hope they don't try and add too much cringy humor in it. For example, in Halloween Kills, the Johns, Big John and Little John,
yeah, it was stupid.
Unnecessary.
Right, no.
I don't need that. I don't want, please don't do that to The Exorcist.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
That's like the things that scare me the most about it. And with modern technology, like there's just so much potential. But I'm just I would hope it'd be like Gus Van Zant's version of Psycho. Like just do a complete shot for shot remake with updated tech.
I don't know. You can still go wrong, but we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, do you have high hopes, any hopes, or just going to wait and...
I'm going to wait and see. Yeah.
That's all we can do for that one. I mean...
Right.
Oh, boy.
All right.
So just if there's not any of that cringe type humor in it, I think it'll be okay.
Okay.
The remake that I am very much looking forward to, I think it's still coming this year. If it's still getting pushed back, if it's just off the block at this point, was the Salem's Lot remake.
Oh,
Sam Lot's film. I would really like that to happen. It's like
did Toby Hooper do I like one of the Salem's Lots. It wasn't the Rob Lowe one. It was old.
One with what was his name? The David Soul, was he was in that one, right?
Is he the writer guy with the blonde hair?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Dude, I liked that a lot. I saw that on Shudder for the first time in years. I hadn't seen that in a long time. I loved that, the Salem's Lot. I was like, I could watch this at Halloween times. This works.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that one actually happens.
Yeah.
And then you get
out of the hundreds of short stories and novels that Stephen King has written, why do they keep going back and remaking the same ones over and over again?
I don't know. And
voided, so to speak. I mean, he's got some great stories that haven't been made into films yet.
I mean, Hulu had such a clever show going with Castle Rock, where they were taking like his stuff and kind of manipulating it into like this other small town Maine universe. I thought that was really neat, but I don't think I haven't heard anything about a third season for that.
Well, Stacey, you're more of a reader than I am. What would you think will be a Stephen King story that would translate very well into a film?
Well, there were quite a few short stories in the Skeleton Crew, but I'm just not the best person at like remembering titles of things. So I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, he had a lot of really neat short stories. There was one, I want to say it's, of course, about rock stars, which is always like, kind of my go-to, but I'm trying to remember what it was. What was the story?
So few
well, of course, he's a very prolific writer. So many books that haven't been made yet. So I guess it's just like I've seen so many remakes of remakes that I'd like to see something a little more original.
I think that's what the market is calling for right now. Is like no more remakes. More original content.
Well, clearly with Halloween Ends, there was Screen Rant did a hilarious thing. I caught one of their YouTube videos on the Halloween Ends pitch meeting. It was really, really good. It was funny. I would like to copy what they do and make fun of some other things. Anyway.
But here's another one that I'm looking forward to in 2023, and that's Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, that should be fun.
Yeah, so, I mean, talking about not original, but not a remake, but at least something in that universe with, like, a fresh take kind of thing,
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the Evil Dead franchise has actually had some of the most successful spin-offs and reiterations. The television show, the Ash show, was fun. And the Fede Alvarez remake of Evil Dead, I really enjoyed that too.
I thought that was good too. I enjoyed that.
The TV show ended prematurely. It got canceled before it could have like a proper finale, which is a real shame.
There's no one with enough money in the horror space to let them finish it?
Apparently not. I mean, it's one of the things where you could probably get a crowdsourced funding.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think that there's a fan base that exists to see it end properly.
Yeah, but 2023, we have a ton of stuff coming our way. I think you're getting another Saw. You're getting...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Another Saw movie.
Okay.
A ton of content. And then, of course, what I'm looking forward to, January 15th, we're talking about TV shows. It's going to be The Last of Us TV show on HBO. And because, like, I I don't play video games as often as I used to.
I don't at all.
When Google gave me the free trial for Stadia, which is getting shut down soon, but either
Really?
way, yeah.
Google can't support Stadia?
They don't want to anymore.
F them.
So I got to try like the newer Resident Evil games. I'm like, I was about to have a heart attack. Like my blood pressure was going through the roof playing the video game was scary as hell. Like they did such a good job with it. And they The Last of Us, first time I saw it, like I sat on the couch and my buddy Joe was booting up this video. Like I thought we were watching a movie. And it was like 30 minutes long, the introduction. And I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, what is this? He's like, The Last of Us. I'm like, this is a movie? He's like, it's a game. And he starts playing. Like, what the hell? And the thing about it is it's a we're going into apocalypse, zombie apocalypse kind of thing, but it's different. And the virus is different. So a nice fresh take on that kind of genre.
I'm glad that you're excited about it.
Yeah. Why not?
I haven't played video games in so long. It's been a long time since Resident Evil 2 where that thing crawled across the window and I was like, oh,
I'm telling you, Ed, you need to watch just the opening to the first video game. You'll be like, what the hell?
All right.
Yeah.
The Last of Us.
Yeah, that whole space, we haven't covered it enough.
No.
But we'll have to I'll have to show you a bunch of stuff.
There's a market for it, clearly.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like the immersive feel of things. Like I don't know how long I can handle that kind of thing because 2 years ago I did the immersive haunted house, and then now with VR and stuff, it's like how much more is it going to be, and then what point do I have to have the ambulance on speed dial because I had a heart attack from some kind of horror video game. So
Stacy, that is, I'm glad you brought that up. Here in Philly, there was this group called Spectra Pulse, and they created this. Now we are a haven now I'm sure you experienced this in LA, but in Philly, we are a haven for haunted houses. We have just a lot, and they're good too. Like we have Bates Motel, we had Eastern State, we had, Creamy Acres over there in Jersey, Jason's Woods, Field of Screams. It's it's just a hub for a lot of live events, fall events.
I didn't know that.
So this one group here, Spectra Pulse, created this. It was an immersive horror experience where Joe was brought in and literally had to not solve this crime, but kind of the story unfolded as he went through each stage.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically I got in, if you're willing to get into character and go with it, I mean, it's a very intense experience. I felt like I was acting the scene, and the more into it I got, the more real it started to feel.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense. Yeah. So
Anyway, so that's where I'm probably that's as far as I'm getting into games.
Yeah,
we'll bring Big Joe Griff on, the good.
Yeah, we got plenty of people that we can talk about that.
The Last of Us.
And then, is there anything else that you're looking forward to in 2023, Stacy, in the horror world? Other than
I think I've about covered the highlights there.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything offhand that I'm really excited about. But, something pop up at mid-year that you didn't really remember coming out in the fall. So that's really kind of when they save the big guns for anyway, around Halloween. So
True.
Yeah.
Well, then to wrap real quick, we will wrap up for sure, because I know both of you are looking at me like, Ed, when are we finishing up? So it's all good. But did A24 get involved with Friday the 13th?
I don't know.
We can look it up, of course, on Google. I was just curious if you guys knew anything about that.
I'm sorry, but your feed keeps freezing and then I can't hear you, so I don't know.
Oh.
So the two things I just mentioned, A24 and Friday the 13th, are they involved?
Oh, yeah, no, I haven't heard about that.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
They are.
I could get behind that. Okay.
It's a prequel TV show that's going to be on Peacock, Crystal Lake.
Ooh.
Okay.
So it's a mini series that'll be
I can F's with that.
A24 and Universal. Yeah. So
all right.
That'll be on Peacock.
All right. Sweet. Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate it. Again, I say you're both looking at me like, all right, Ed, it's been great. It's been fun. Let me the F go. So I appreciate both of your time with all this. No, honestly.
Well, thanks for having me back. I always love to be on the show, and anything to do with Red River Horror, I'm down. So podcast. So thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Stacey.
you.
We're greatly appreciative.
Yeah.
Get her book, Rock and Roll Nightmares, True Stories, Volume 2, coming out January 9th. Catch up on Rock and Roll Nightmares, the true stories. We covered the 60s, 70s, 80s, the fictional ones here, but there's a whole, if you like the
True
devil,
crime, rock and roll,
all that stuff.
on.
Yeah.
We
Come
love
on.
it. We love it. All right. So happy 2023, both you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with you.
Here's to this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this has been episode number 88 of the Red River Horror Podcast. And remember, folks, to keep traveling those channels of fear.